here's something else that's come from America, and it is, of course, the various different anti-obesity drugs that are doing the rounds. Wegovy is one, which we're being told is going to be available through controlled and limited launch this week on the NHS. It's going to be up to 50,000 obese patients who are going to qualify for this NHS pilot scheme. But apparently, you can also buy the stuff online, and there's a big row going on currently because a lot of the supply is actually being siphoned away from the NHS and being sold for profit, because Boots and Superdrug will sell it privately for about £200 a month. Let's talk to Dr. Renee Hoenderkamp, GP in the NHS and, of course, broadcaster right here on TalkTV. Dr. Renee, very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Mike. I'm afraid you get me in very casual mode today, as it's Alice's last day before she starts big school.
Well, she's lucky she's got a school she can go to, you know. I mean, you better check the check the walls and the ceiling as you go in. This is a fascinating story, really, isn't it? Because it's kind of, it's a bit like medicine has kind of overtaken the world and overtaken reality, because here we've got a drug which nobody's absolutely sure is not a terribly bad idea, but they think it's a good idea for people to lose weight while they're on it. But it's almost being released in a dual way. So you can either get it on the NHS if you're lucky enough to get it that way, or you can just pay for it.
Mm. I mean, Mike, you've said so much there that needs to be unpicked about this, and there are so many issues here. I think, firstly, if there was ever a demonstration that big pharma's focus is now purely on profit, we see it here, because we see it aimed at obesity, which is the biggest problem that we have in this country and every Western country, to be fair. You said it had been shipped over from America, this idea, as has obesity, because we have followed their food fads. The food companies are here, you know, dishing out their really, really horrible, nasty, not good for you food that's really tasty. So you eat loads and loads of it and you get fat, and then farmers step in with this fabulous solution to try and help you do it. And of course, the drug companies must be laughing, Mike, at people scrambling to get this, so that there's a black market, there's an NHS market, there's a private clinic market, because they are going to sell this stuff hand over fist. And I think it's important to remember that there are several things about this drug that we don't know. We only have about 2 years data in terms of long-term side effects, and there are some links with the rodents they tested it on, with cancer, with blindness, with all sorts of nasty side effects. So if you take this, you're part of an ongoing long experiment, because we won't know for several years. Secondly, you only lose weight on this while you're taking it. When you stop taking it, your appetite comes back, you start eating, and the weight goes on. So here's the NHS scrambling to put money into this. And if you compare it with other things, for example, like children who have intractable epilepsy that we know from really good data from Canada, for example, can be helped by medical cannabis, but they can't get it. But here, if you're obese, you can get this with 2 years of data. You have to question what has gone wrong here, that we seem to be guided purely by what Big Pharma want us to do.
Yes, and also apparently there's a similar drug which is also available on the NHS, which contains the semaglutide, I think it's called, the drug's active ingredient, and this is marketed under the name Ozempic. And people get that as a treatment for type 2 diabetes, but that's also being sold off-label, and apparently has been used, according to a piece in the Times today, by people like Boris Johnson and Jeremy Clarkson. So you can get the actual nature of the drug already online.
You can, and there are two issues here as well. Firstly, I think it's absolutely obscene to try and convince people that this drug is safe and effective because Jeremy Clarkson and Boris Johnson are taking it. And people will be guided by that. They'll think, oh, God, they wouldn't say anything or do anything that wasn't good for them, so it must be okay for me. And then the second strand of this, there are people with diabetes who need this drug. And Ozempic is now actually intermittent in terms of its supply, which means not everybody who needs it for diabetes can get it.
Right. So, I mean, is it likely? I mean, I've also heard stories of missing sort of batches of it from hospitals because, you know, because it's in such high demand rather, and because it is quite expensive to buy privately. I'm hearing that there's some, shall we say, NHS supplies going missing out of hospitals and possibly out of doctors' surgeries, and not going to the pharmacy, but going to online businesses where they can make an absolute profit out of it.
Do you know what, Mike? I can't comment on that because I haven't heard, but it wouldn't surprise me because whenever there is money involved, and when you're talking about obesity, there is always money involved. Just have a flick through TikTok and, Instagram and see the things that are being sold to people to actually help them lose weight. Wherever there is money, there are bad people everywhere who will do this. And so you've got here this fantastic market. It's almost akin to a drug market, isn't it?
Yeah.
That, if you can get hold of this stuff, you can sell it and make a quick buck.
And also, presumably online, there will be all manner of kind of copycat style, pharmacy-type organisations selling something different and claiming it's a fat drug.
Yeah.
And people will be buying that and they'll say, buy the cut rate version or something like that. And people will buy it because they want so much to lose weight that they'll try anything.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. And they don't think for a second, hang on a minute, what might I be buying? And we've seen this in the aesthetics industry where people are buying things to put into their lips that have actually got cement in it, and it's actually really dangerous. There are people that have died from injections into their buttocks because it's not got medical grade silicone in it but actually has cement. And the same will happen with these injections. People will buy it because they're desperate. When it comes to losing weight, people are desperate. They may not want to take the actions that will help them do it, but they are still desperate for the end result. And so yes, there's a black market where you could be buying anything. It could have rat poison in it.
Yeah, it really is extraordinary, isn't it? And have we lost sort of the regulatory sort of safeguarding in this country then? Is this the first time you've seen something sort of a bit like the Wild West here? Because it seems to me that, if I went online right now, I haven't tried to do it, to see if I could buy some Wegovy, I presume that wouldn't be difficult, but I wouldn't really know whether it was. I wouldn't necessarily know where to buy it from, and I would consider myself to be a reasonably well-informed individual. But if you're not sure what you're doing, you could be buying anything.
You could absolutely be buying anything. And I think what's actually contributed to that, Mike, is the ease with social media now, with the internet. Whereas 30 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to do that. It would have been really difficult. You would have had to meet a man in an alleyway, and first of all, you'd have to know how to contact him. Now you can do it in your living room with no one else helping you and arrange to actually get this delivered and posted through your letterbox. I don't think that's necessarily a failure at the moment of our regulation, because these drugs are being regulated, although these ones are being fast-tracked through as far as I can see. But I do think there is a failure of the regulators to get up to speed with the modern world and get online and stop people selling this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely right. It could be quite dangerous. So I think caution would be the watchword of the day. Dr. Renee Hoenderkamp, thank you very much indeed